Bachmann introduced their first Class 70 in 2010, and since then they have delivered 8 different models, the last of which were in 2018. The model hasn't changed significantly during that time, and just falls short of being a truly great model. It's time to take a closer look. Hi, thanks for joining today's review. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the Bachmann Class 70 range to date. We'll then do an unboxing of one of the models. We'll do a close-up view of that model, followed by a running session, and then we'll get into a summary scoring. And at the very end, I've got a wish list of some improvements I think could really turn this model into a world beater. Okay, let's get underway. So first of all, we're going to take a look at the Bachmann Class 70 range since its introduction in 2010. Back in 2010, we did have 3 different models, one of which was a limited edition model, that's the 585Z, and both models were in the Freightliner Powerhaul livery, and they were DCC ready models. They followed up in 2013 and 2012 with a number of additional models, again in the same livery. But they did introduce at this time a DCC fitted and a DCC sound version. Pretty well the same overall livery, same chassis, etc., same motor, but as I say, renumbered and with those options of fitted DCC sound. And then in 2018, Bachmann did introduce 2 new versions. These were based on the latest version of the prototype with the air intake modifications, and I'll talk about that in the next slide here. Two versions of this in 2 different liveries, 70015 in the Freightliner Powerhaul livery again, and 70805 in the Cullis Rail livery, and that was again a very popular model in that livery. Now, so from a review perspective, we're actually going to take a look at 31585, which was the very first model that was introduced, and that's the one that we'll be doing the close-up view and running session with. So these are the air intake modifications, and on the left-hand side is the new models with the air intake. So you can see that added air intake added to the side of the locomotive there, and it actually causes the Freightliner logo to actually be reduced in size to accommodate it. So not only do you get the added air intake module, you also get a smaller logo as a result. The other difference on these models had to do with the actual buffers, and you can see the kind of red shanks on the buffers there on the left hand side, and they don't have those yellow dots that we have on the older models, and the black shanks on the older models there on the right hand side. So these really were the primary differences between the 2018 and the preceding models, and more or less everything else is the same weight of model, etc., and the same sort of levels of detail, etc., and you can probably see that in some of the comparisons there. Hi, so we're going to do a very brief unboxing of the Class 50. Now this one has DCC sound added to it. It came as a DCC ready model, but it did have an upgrade and a pretty impressive DCC sound as well. So if you listen to the running session, I'll put a link in the description, you'll get the lowdown on the sound. It comes with the standard paperwork. This is the House sound that was fitted, custom fitted, the usual breakout for the model. And I suppose one criticism of this model that people who've been fitting DCC into it have found that quite a challenge. It seems to be quite challenging to open the model. It's something I haven't had to do, and having read the reports, I'm not going to try to do it here. Let me get this out of the package. It's a standard Bachmann packaging, so I'm not going to spend much time with that. It does come with kind of 2 detailing kits, one with the kind of pipe work and the other one with the kind of air dams and a coupler. So there is an air dam actually fitted to it as well, so they're really kind of giving you just a kind of an extra there. So now I've got it out of the box, so let's take a quick look. Now the first thing I guess is the weight. This is not as heavy as it actually looks or you would expect it to be. So I'll be checking this out a little bit later on, but the reports are it weighs in at around 430 grams, which is light for a locomotive like this. A Class 66, for example, would be weighing in at about 100 grams more than that. That's for a Bachmann Class 66. Like a Hatton's Class 66 would be up to 300 grams heavier, so that's significantly heavier. And I think this has been an issue. Again, I've seen this from some of the people who've owned this model. That's been a bit of an issue. I mean, I think the first viewing of this model is that visually it is actually quite spectacular. There's an amazing amount of detail in terms of the rails here. You can see these little separately fitted handrails all the way along the model. There's these handrails down at either end as well. It's kind of a little bit like a Murphy Models model actually. All of the venting here, 140 labels on the actual model. See the safety stickers. There's 140 of these apparently. I haven't counted them myself, but that's what the reports say, which is really phenomenal. So, you know, the top fans here look really good. The venting, the overall level of detail on this model is actually fantastic. The upper body detail, the doors, really called out very well. The nice windows there. It is spectacular. We will do a close-up view of it and the normal 360 view. But in my hand here, this model just looks really spectacular, and you know, a very nice livery as well with the Freightliner power haul livery, as they call it. I guess the things that feel a little bit off, the underbody here feels a bit plasticky, and I guess that's contributing to the weight. So that's one downside. It doesn't seem to, normally on a heavy model like this, you really feel it in the body of the model. So that's again coming back to the weight aspect. I mean, the visuals are fantastic, so I don't have any complaints there. There are these switches underneath here, so you can switch the actual the lighting, and you can, for example, turn off the rear lights to go into a train mode type setup. It does have all-wheel pickup. You know, and it is a really good runner, and I think if you look at the running session, any times I've run this model, it has been really good, and I think most people who have run it, at least running it on its own, it's a fantastic runner. I think the main complaints tend to be that it doesn't have the weight to pull a really heavy load as like the real world prototype would do, and I guess that's kind of the issue with it. That's one of the issues. That said, I mean, this upper body here is absolutely spectacular. I mean, there's nothing like it. Does the fitted driver as usual, but the amount of handrails here, and then the amount of labeling, those safety stickers all over the place, the vents all over the place, it's phenomenal. So it is a huge credit to Bachmann. I think this model is easily visually one of the most impressive diesel models I think I've ever seen. I think it outstrips the Class 66 for sure. There's an awful lot more going on here. Now I know people claim that this is quite an ugly kind of model, but I just think it oozes diesel power. Unfortunately, the weight doesn't go along with that, but overall it really looks a very impressive model. So I think we're going to take the close-up look at this now, then we'll get on the track and we'll get into the later stages of the review. I suppose another point to make is this is representative. They haven't made dramatic changes to the model. The main change on the 2018 models was the air intake change that was just represented on the model, and that's the main difference visually. I think the rest of the model, from what I've seen in terms of the weight, performance, etc., is pretty well the same. So really these models, that was the main change to these models over the last while. Obviously, as you've seen, there are some individual differences in terms of weathering. There was a DCC sound version of this, there was a DCC fitted version along the way, and obviously you've got the Cullis rail livery now, which was available in the 2018 version of this, and hopefully will be available again in the future when they up issue it. Okay, let's get into the more detailed view, and then we can get her out on the track. Okay, so now we're going to get into a close-up view. So we'll take a side-on view of the model first, and you can see the kind of level of detail there in terms of the handrails. There's a whole array of grab rails along the side of these models, up to 140 different safety sticker labels apparently over the model. I haven't counted them, but you can kind of see them all over the model there. So really a fantastic level of detail here, and actually even the side-on view doesn't do it full justice because the separately fitted handrails don't really probably stand out in this view. You can see the kind of side vents there, the fans on top there. We'll get a better look when we do the 360 view of those, and again the handrails there and the detail around the cab. Really a tremendously detailed model overall, and some detail in the cab itself, and there is a fitted driver as well in these models. Get over to the 360 view now, and again you can kind of see the fans on the top there, some really nice detailed fans there, and you probably get a better appreciation for the overall level of detail on the model here in those all those various handrails around the side. Either side do stand out a lot better, I think, on this view, so you can kind of get to see that level of detail. And good level of detail around the front as well. Big broad windows on these. I think a fantastically detailed model overall, and I really am impressed with these. A very nice rendering of the Freightliner livery as well, the Powerhaul livery, with the nice yellow and grey curves there. So a really, really nice model. I think this aspect of the model, its visual appearance is top notch, and probably one of the best diesels that I've certainly seen for that level of detail. So we're going to get into the running session now, and this is the running session of the same model, and with the some custom sound added actually to this, the house sound, which I think is actually very good. There is a separate running session with the sound running at full volume, so I'll put that link to that in the description. It's well worth watching if you're interested in this locomotive, because you get the full effect of the sound. Again, you can see the level of detail alongside there. It's a good close-up view of the detail on that locomotive. I found it to be a very good performer. It's got all-wheel pickup, and that kind of shows. It doesn't have the weight, so that weight level of around 440 grams means it is a little bit on the light side. It's lighter than a typical Class 66, which would be coming in at about 540, or would be 100 grams heavier. Now, I didn't really notice it in any of the running sessions that I've run, but I have a relatively small layout, so I haven't been running with extraordinarily large rakes or with very heavy wagons. So if you were running this, and I've certainly seen some reports of people, noting some wheel slip, for example, which you really shouldn't be seeing on a locomotive like this. With very heavy rakes of heavier wagons, and so I haven't experienced that, but I haven't been stressing it, I would say, to that level. So that's one of the drawbacks with the model. You won't really see it on this particular running session because you're just going to see it. The rake I have here is a relatively modest one. It's a reasonable one, but it's a modest one overall. So I'm not really putting it under stress here. So speeding it up a bit here, and this is a really good performer. I had no problems, flawless performance across. I've run this both on, radius 2 track with the impairments there, the typical Hornby points, etc. And it's running on the kind of radius 3 outer circuit here, which has express points on it. And they can be a little bit challenging for some locomotives. But he didn't have any problems. This locomotive was a really good performer. I think the only caveat is that, as I said, there are reports from people who have had issues with very heavy loads, and that all comes down to the lack of weight in the locomotive becoming a problem with the heavier loads. So that's unfortunate, because apart from that, I have found it a really superb runner, and really, really good performance on this particular running session here. And it is probably my favorite diesel locomotive, from a running perspective. I like to run this locomotive out, and the sound is actually really good. I do like the sound that it has. So the only thing I don't have, and I would have liked to have picked up the Collis Rail livery of this, that version, the 2018 model. Unfortunately, they were pretty well sold out. I didn't get an opportunity to pick one of those up, but certainly would like to pick one of those up in the future. So overall, a really satisfactory running session. I really love running this locomotive. It's very enjoyable to run it, and hope you got a feel for it there on that session. I'm looking at the Class 70 from Bachmann, which comes in the Freightliner, Powerhaul and Collis Rail liveries. Basically only one of the 8 models to date has been in the Collis Rail. All the other 7 have been in the Freightliner, Powerhaul, and maybe in the future we might get some more options there. In general, these come 21-pin DCC ready. However, there was a DCC fitted version, the 31587DC, and there was a sound fitted version, which was the 31587DS. But typically, as I say, they come DCC ready. Extra features across the range has been the directional headlighting, the cab lighting, and the fitted driver. They all come with sprung buffers and a detailing kit. And they all have this weight of just over 430 grams. There's 442 on the model I have here, but that does include a speaker and a sound decoder. The max scale speed that I tested this model at, this is at 100% power under DCC, was 75 miles per hour. Now that was actually tuned, so I did tune the settings, the maximum settings on the DCC controller to get that as the top speed, and the maximum current drawn by the locomotive at that speed is 170 milliamps, which isn't too bad. That's with no load, obviously. That's not carrying any wagons, so if you add a rake to that, obviously that number would go up. So there is headroom for higher speed on this, but I've scaled it back with the settings on the DCC side. Retail selling prices, and these are all second hand now, so you're not going to get these, though you may get them new on eBay. The older models would be starting at about £85 and running up to £165 for a new version of one of the newer models, if you were able to get that on eBay, and that's in a DCC ready state. So in terms of the scoring, so overall the running performance, I'm giving it a 4.5 star. I did find it a really good runner. I'm just docking that half a star because I did not get to test this under very heavy loads, and as I said, there is a little bit of a cloud hanging over it because of the body weight if you have a very large rake and using heavier wagons. So that's the reason it's 4.5 star. Otherwise, the low speed performance, for example, speed across all the different track types, no issues at all from a running perspective. But just that's the main concern here. It's really linked to the weight of the actual locomotive itself. Appearance and detail, I'm giving a 5 star. This is a really detailed model. The number of handrails, that level of all those labeling on the body, very nice paint job. It's a 5 star type appearance, that's for sure. I'm not rating the sound because the sound on my model here was a custom added sound. It wasn't an out of box sound, so I'm not measuring that. I didn't have access to one of the sound equipped versions, or the one version that was available. The extras and variants, you do get a good detailing kit. There's a lot of lighting options on this. There have been a number of variants. I think this may be an area again for the future, but overall a good score here because you do get a lot on the model. There's a lot of extra pieces, the fitted driver, the sprung buffers, etc. The build quality and packaging, I'm putting at a 4 star. And again, the only reason I'm not giving a slightly higher score here, I think the packaging is fine. It's the build quality is that underbody just feels a little bit cheap. It's a plastic underbody, and again, this is contributing to the low weight. I think if that was to be a more solid underbody, it would have a better feel to it. And also there were some issues, some users have experienced issues with some of the motors on these. And again, that could be a manufacturing issue, or it could be a design issue. So hence the 4 star. Personally, I did not have any problems with this particular model, apart from, as I say, the underbody does feel a little bit plasticky. So I certainly noted that on my own model, and you do notice the lower weight. Price value, I'm giving a 4 star at the kind of price levels this has been selling at. Would be nice to see a DCC sound fitted version, so I certainly would like to see that in the future, and if that could come in at about 250, 260, I think that would be good value. And overall, I'm giving this a 4.5 star. I think it is it's one of my favorite diesel locomotives, if not the favorite. I think the detail level is superb, so from a visual perspective, it's really good. Now, I know that this particular locomotive type, people wouldn't see it as a little bit of an ugly duckling in terms of the diesel locomotives that are out there. That aside, I think visuals on this are really good. I haven't seen the motor issues, as I said myself, but there are reports out there, so I do have to take that into account. And I think there are some minor enhancements, and I've got those on the next slide from a wishlist perspective that could probably turn this from a really good model into a spectacularly good model. I am a fan of the Class 70 anyway, but I think a few additions and a few changes could really enhance the model. So I am saying it's a highly recommended. I really enjoy running this locomotive. I do have a very good sound offering on it. You can get Legoban Biffo sound for this, and that I think would really give you a very nice combination. So what is my wish list? So I think the weight needs to improve. So it needs to be equally as heavy as any of the Class 66 models. I don't think there's any reason why it should be lighter than those. So I think that's the first thing. So I think you do need, it does need that extra weight. I'm saying 540 grams or more. It might be nice to get this in the kind of 600 gram range. Address any motor issues. So I'm not sure, as I say, whether there was manufacturing problems here or whether there was design issues, whether the existing motor is fine and with a heavier chassis it could do what's needed. If there are issues, then we'd like to see those addressed. The underbody on the actual prototype isn't that detailed. So I think some additions could probably be made to the model here to bring it up to the same level. As I said, it's not the most detailed, complicated underbody on the prototype, and so a little bit more detail in the underbody here. Plus, as I said, getting rid of that plasticky feeling. If you're going to add some weight in there, that would probably change the whole feel of the underbody as well, and that would just improve the look. From a visual perspective, that's the only real improvement. I think the upper body is excellent. I think they don't need to really make any improvements there. Having an enlarged speaker cavity would be really good. This model is a large-ish model, so putting in a good speaker cavity to allow a good bass speaker to go in there would really help. And then having a DCC sound option with, say, a Lock Sound 5 and maybe the Legaban Biffo sounds would be really nice to have as an option. And I think I would certainly go for that, and I'm sure other enthusiasts or fans of this model might go for that as well. And the last point is really people have found it difficult to open the model, get access to upgrade for DCC purposes. It seems to be one of the more challenging models to open up. I didn't have to do that here because I already had sound installed. This is a complaint with some models, and I think anything that can be done to improve that. Access to the model for DCC upgrades without interfering or damaging the model, I think would be really good. So that's my wish list. Please feel free to comment on the wish list. If you own one of these, what other improvements would you like to see made to the model? Perhaps please give your comments. I'm interested to get people's feedback on this particular model as well. Are there other fans out there of this particular model and would like to see more from Bachmann on it? And if they could improve it, would you take the plunge perhaps and go with this particular model? I'd certainly like to get the Cullis Rail version of it in the future, and if I could get that with some good DCC sound, I would really like to do that. So I'll say it's one of my favorite models, diesel models out there, but I do like it, and I think it's not far from being a really, really good model from Bachmann. I think a few tweaks, some of the items on this aren't huge, and they could really turn this into a spectacular diesel model and something that would be representative of the real life models, and I think something that people would really go for. So I hope you enjoyed this today. This is a long overdue review. I've meant to do this for quite some time. Please give me your feedback in the comments. Say your thoughts on this particular model and this class of locomotive. And we'll see you on the next review in the near future, hopefully. Okay, thanks now. And in the meantime, happy modelling.